We'll be talking about early planted soybeans in the Mid-Atlantic region. Our farmers are really interested in early planted soybeans as they are looking to their neighbors in different regions of the country, like the South, really being able to capitalize on a yield benefit by extending the growing season through planting early. But our farmers have questions about this. So the logic follows that by extending the growing season, more vegetative growth leads to more nodes, more pods, and more yield. Our Mid-Atlantic, specifically Maryland growers, are also interested in this. If they can harvest their soybeans early and plant their following cover crop early, they may be able to capitalize on financial incentives for the early planting of the soybeans, of the cover crop. So they're interested in this. But they do have questions. They have concerns that they see folks to the western part of our state, exposing the soybeans to cold and wet soils, and also maybe multiple replanting due to slug damage. There's also questions of how do I actually plant early? Are there other factors that I have to modify, such as maturity group, seeding rate, to really be able to capitalize on that benefit? So there are a lot of questions. So researchers in our region, we dug into this problem. We really tried to evaluate this over 3 different studies. The first study just honing in on planting date effects on yield, where the second study we decided to duplicate our entire soybean variety trial, giving us a really wide range of maturity group and varieties. And then in that third study, really focusing in on the interrelationship between those different management factors, such as seeding rate at a limited maturity group range. So these are our planting dates for the study. We really did strive to get as early as possible with that early planting. However, you will see that mid-April to late May is the recommended planting window in our region. Again, in the first study, we really honed in on the maturity group that is recommended in our region, where we kind of spread out with that second study where we had all of the entries in the soybean variety trial, and then honed back in on those maturity group 3s, which are a little bit early for our region in that final study. In the initial study, we tried to capture the geographic diversity across the state of Maryland. In the western part of our state, we are in the Appalachian Mountains, so a much cooler growing season, shorter growing season. And then as we move to the central part of the state, definitely seeing more warmer conditions where early planting may be beneficial. So in the initial study, when we pooled all of the data together, looking at the effect of that early planting date, no difference in yield with that early planting. In the western part of the state, similar results, no yield benefit from early planting. As we move to the central part of the state, again, no yield benefit from early planting. As we hopped over the Chesapeake Bay to the eastern shore, we saw differences here, but it was much more of a late planting penalty versus an early season benefit. And then finally in our Delaware location, again, no difference in yield due to that early planting. So the first study, we saw no yield benefit with early planting. In our second study, as we moved into early planting of our entire variety trials in the central part of the state, when we lumped all of our data together, we saw a 6 bushel increase with that early planting. When we focused on the group 3 beans, again, a 6 bushel increase with that early planting. In those early maturity group 4s, a 6 bushel increase, and a 7 bushel increase when we moved into those late maturity group 4s. Finally, group 5s, which are a little long for our region, we did not see a yield benefit with early planting. So a minimal yield benefit when we looked at the entries in our variety trials. And then that final study, again, focusing in on the central part of the state, where we really kind of threw the kitchen sink together, looking at things like seeding rate, group 3 maturity group, and our planting date, trying to look at the interrelationship between these factors. We found that planting date absolutely did not matter. There was no yield benefit from that early planting in that final study. So generally, we're not seeing the ability for our farmers to kind of capture that early planting yield benefit. However, you might say, Nicole, look at your early planting dates. They're really not that early compared to what your recommended planting date is in your region. And I say fair, agreed with you. So in our research studies, when we were ready to go, we were likely limited by some type of conditions in the field where we could not plant early. And this mirrors the conditions that our farmers saw in their fields as well. We all have the intentions to plant early, but we're just unable to do so because the conditions do not allow. So our research is really replicating and representing the real world. We're all struggling to plant early in our region. So overall, we found that while we did not see a yield benefit from early planting, we feel that there's not a yield penalty from early planting. So if our growers are ready and raring to go and they're able to get those soybeans in the field early, they should go for it. And they should take solace in the fact that there's probably not a risk of doing so, but not expect that they are going to see a yield benefit from it. Thank you.